what I can say actually say congratulations to him for that, and his ambitions to achieve the targets or the goals he has put on the table
Right.
depends mostly on the focus of the job. There is getting a job and also bringing people together. You to achieve, you need to be focused on
Right.
all areas, because you may not manage to focus and achieve your personal goal if that is his manifesto. That requires him to bring all the partners on the table so that all these issues is actually trying to bring on board can be achieved. What I my worry would be only African Bank has been mentioned several times
Right.
on political issues.
Mm.
The moment you bring politics in, mostly in this kind of jobs, then you get to divert the attention
Right.
to different things, because it's very important for you to focus to the service, not to political issues. Then I know he can achieve that goal.
All right then. I like the fact that you also did mention where I'm going to be taken to Barrister Agumo here in the studio. But I'm still going to come to you and still stay with you. On the part of the presidency that he is getting right now, it was clear he had 7% of shareholders vote. So that, again, a lot of persons say he definitely would be having so much support, because that was about the highest margin ever for a first-term candidacy at the African Development Bank. But looking at these kind of vote of confidence on his person, do you think that priorities can be achieved if, of course, there are some political interference, which, of course, you mentioned a couple of seconds ago?
Yes, considering his experience, considering all the fields he has been, he looks to be a person who's dedicated to his activities. And now African Bank, and actually the shareholders will be having much expectations on him. So I
Okay.
believe is capable, and I know he will achieve and he will do his work, but only with avoidance of political environments.
All right, then. Let me bring this conversation to the studio. Barrister Darlington, interestingly, as it stands, the new president of AFDBA, I'm talking about President Okwaro, is clearly stating that he wants to achieve quite a number of things. And he did mention four anyways. But the part of political interference, which the AFDB have been fingered in recent time, do you think if there is, of course, the willpower for President Tar to wanting to achieve more with the AFDB, he can be able to achieve it without political interference?
As long as ADB is not wholly owned by Africans, political interference will come in. Remember that America have interest in that bank. I hope you're aware. In the first coming of Donald Trump, he always made it impossible for Akinwumi Adesina to become the president of that country. Is that not true? He almost made it impossible. He didn't want him to, until all the other shareholders rally around and then override his own vote. That was how Akinwumi Adesina became the president of that bank.
Right.
Now, over the years, since the creation of that bank, I've been asking myself, what has Africa benefited from that bank? Look at our own Akinwumi Adesina when he was there. Please, can you tell me that outstanding things Nigeria, as the biggest country in Africa, benefited from him, even though he's our own? The answer is practically nothing. Until and unless that bank is independent of Western influence. David, you forget it.
But Barrister, there's been some facilitation of loans, particularly from the AFDB, to most African countries, particularly Nigeria as well. Don't you think those loans are something worthy enough to appreciate.
ADB should shift their focus from giving loan to greedy African leaders who will pocket the money to industrial development. Because after the Second World War, I think Roosevelt, or who was that particular American president, he created the martial law. Yes, that brought in so many economic developments in all the Western countries that took part in that war. And that particular idea lifted all of them up. Is that not what happened?
Right.
Good. The New Deal. Go and check. This is there. It is not rocket science. I don't know why African leaders don't copy what has worked to somewhere and bring it. They don't bring good things into Africa. It is always the negative things.
So, Barrister,
how did the Western Europe and America come out of the Second World War that almost crippled all of them? How did it happen? How? And you have a bank you call your own, yet nothing is coming out from there. Every year, the politics is all about who will be the next president. Let it be that he's from our own country. At the end of the day, what happened? Nothing. Look at Africa. Can you call it the whole of African country? Mention one industrialized one.
But Barrister, would that be the problem of the AFDB or the problem of African leadership that have not utilized the funds that have been given to them thus far?
Look, the bank that lifted Western Europe out of after the Second World War is a bank. It was created and it had focus. That was why all of them went back to work. Went back to work after the Second World War. In Africa, how long are we continue to talk and yet no action? How long? Can't we have a bank that will just be focusing on industrial development, industrial goods,
but that would be
manufacturing?
But Barrister, that would be in the partnership of a sitting government in a state. So if the sitting government of a state is not particular about what we're talking about now, do you think the AFB can do anything?
Then don't give them loan. That is it. Don't give them loan. They're not entitled to any loan. The ADB should focus on any loan that is not attached to industrial development. Don't come for it. We don't want loan that will help you to build road, help you to construct flyover. You know that this is the easiest avenue to eat money. Every time they are spending 200 billion to construct one footbridge. Is that development? Let them bring a blueprint on industrial development. Give it to ADB. Then they will now do what? Finance and execute it.
All right then.
After all, when you want to go and borrow money in the bank will want to see the feasibility study. They will follow that loan and that money and the project to track it and know whether yes you are actually applying the loan.
Right.
So why is it that when they give loan they just relax? We don't see the impact at the end of the day.
Okay, I like this conversation where you're taking it to Barrister. Let's take it back to Uganda. Barrister Edward, interestingly, Barrister here just brought up more like a suggestion that can, of course, if well implemented, help the AFDB. What's your position about the fact that the AFDB should stop giving loans to governments that are not practically using those loans for the improvement of Africa, particularly on industry, and helping the people even more?
In fact, I concur with him because one of the failures is going to face, or the challenges is going to face, actually automatically the African leadership. Africans are too greedy, and they know how to bring sweet kind of ideas which may not actually make the president to achieve his main agendas. Okay. So according to me, I think the African Union, ADB, should actually now formulate policies which are going to help directly the communities on agriculture, on education, on industrial areas, which are going to actually now serve the people, not the individuals. Because when we allow the individuals to come you get this money is not helping. He has just given a very good example. You cannot build a bridge a year to a year. You get, we need, there are so many things African Bank can do. There are so many projects we have, and this some of these projects you get a government to go and borrow money from the ADB. You get that this money is not even reaching to people.
Right.
It will not reach to do activities which are important to the communities. So I believe the policies in that should be very important for him to achieve whatever he wants to achieve within a shortest time.
All right
He
then.
has to-
All right then. Let's take this conversation to the first story that I read earlier, and that's about the landslide that happened in Darfur, Sudan, where over 1,000 persons were killed in a village by a landslide, of course, after heavy rainfalls. Interestingly, armed groups, that's the Sudanese Liberation Movement, has pleaded for international assistance in recovering bodies and, of course, rescuing residents after over 1,000 persons were killed in a landslide that wiped out a mountain village after a heavy rain. Do you think at this point armed groups asking for international presence in Sudan because of of course, getting the bodies of over 1,000 persons that were killed in that village, do you think that's even a call for the armed group rather than the president and, of course, the leadership of the country herself?
It's unfortunate for this kind of natural calamities. They happen everywhere, and we have seen people lose lives, and but there is no support. These are some of the things you get that in Africa we have a very poor kind of a system which can do what we call rescuing the kind of situations in that kind of when that kind of a calamity happens.
Right.
So I believe what the
groups.
soldiers
Right.
groups which actually they are acting out of their own will because the government itself maybe not enough to actually handle the situation at that point. So when you get a good wisher who's near to assist, I say that is okay. That's a good thing they have done. But the government should wake up and put modalities on how to handle this kind of situations.
All right, then let's bring this conversation to the studio. Barrister, interestingly, this armed group clearly have taken over that region in Sudan before the heavy rain that caused the landslide and, of course, the loss of life of over 1,000 persons. But another interesting conversation in this whole story is the fact that the Sudanese government, as at the report filing today, has not said anything about what has happened.
David, you see, God is a wonderful personality. He has a way of disciplining people who are very recalcitrant. Most time, it could be either through natural disaster,
Okay.
or through direct confrontation with the individual. The examples are there in the Bible. This armed group, I thought they said they are very powerful. Why are they calling for help? They should have fought the landslide and the torrential rainfall now. They should have fought it. Please, David, this particular war in Sudan, if you ask me, what was the reason for that war?
Power tussle. Power tussle.
Yes, power tussle. For what? Avoidable war. Avoidable. That is even my annoyance here. Look at how many human beings that these people have wasted because they are fighting for ego. Now a natural disaster has visited them and they are calling for help. Now who would not come and help them? David, who would not come and help them? I pray this natural disaster should be extended to these combatants who refuse to hear. He should have visited them in numbers. Let me see who will not come and fight and be killing each other. Next time, God should target them specifically and wipe them out so that there will be peace in Sudan. Oh, well. Nobody is coming to help them. Let them stew in their own juice. See, they don't want to hear.
Oh, well, again, questions have been asked about the position of the government in all of this.
What do you want the government to do? Is it not people who, government that you are fighting?
But there are civilians in that area, Barrister.
So some people claim they are now the de facto government in that area. Let them handle it.
But there are civilians in that area, Barrister.
Let them handle it. Yes, they didn't think of the civilians when they were killing. And who are they even killing in the first place? Was it not these same civilians? In any war situation, who suffers most? You know, women and children, ordinary civilians. Have I not been saying it here that war in Sudan is clearly avoidable? Yes, they will not hear. They will not hear. I said next time, God will target the combatant. These rascals who refuse to hear and take them out so that there will be peace in that country. All
right, then. Now, speaking of peace, Barrister, interestingly, the African Union is practically talking right now, and they are citing the imperative of avoiding arbitrary deportation, among other ills, within the countries that have decided to take in these illegal migrants from the U.S. to them. And, of course, you would recall that the likes of Uganda, Rwanda, Eswatini, and 2 other countries I can't remember off my head right now, are the ones they are talking to. Now, Barrister, looking at the fact that the African Union is talking, and they are talking about the fact that they should be very cautious that the rights of these people that are coming in are protected and not the otherwise. What say you about this kind of conversation from the African
Union? David, African leaders should be very careful with this romance they are having with Donald Trump of America. They should be very careful. How can they allow prisoners from American prisons to be shipped into Africa for whatever amount? What kind of money is that? These people are hardened criminals that have served their jail term. Instead of Donald Trump to keep them there, he's looking for where to dump them. And you know that these criminal tendencies is in their DNA. These people are not even from Africa. I hope you know. I hope you know that they are not from Africa.
Well, some of them are.
Some of them. Why can't their country take them?
Well, some of them have said they don't want to return back to the country.
Oh, they don't want to return, Abi. Oh, they want to return where? No, hold on. You can imagine. And so Donald Trump obliged them. Are you serious? For the first time, American president is obeying international law, Abi. You now take somebody to a country that does not belong to him and dump him there. Look, there are implications. So.
I was going to ask you that, Barrister. What are the implications?
Listen very well. These people, with time, they are going to become members of that society. Is that not true?
Well, if they will move time.
They will move around. They look for what to eat. Is that not true? Were you told that government will go and quarantine them somewhere and be giving them free food and all that? No. Eventually, they will come out and look for means of livelihood. They are going to mingle with the people. In fact, they will marry and begin to rear children. Is that not true? Good. With time, what will happen? Let me tell you something that happened in 1804. A group of people came from nowhere and entered a particular country. Out of religious sentiment, there are people in that country welcome them. These are brothers, come. They welcome them. Not long after, these people that they welcome into these visitors, they wiped out all the princes in that region and took over that region. Took over completely. Nobody, none of the princes, none of the leaders of that region is alive today. They wiped them out. Took over everywhere. And now they have taken over. They are consolidated. And they are causing problems in the whole of that country.
You think that is what's most likely going to happen here?
You said what? I just gave you an example. You are still asking me.
I'm asking
what makes you think that those people have anything, any good intention in that country? Because it's not their country. They are coming there to plunder. With time, their children will grow up. They will not read their history and so this is not our country, Abi. They will not assert themselves. That is a fact. Because with time, these people that they are brought in now, they would have died. Then their children will not be asking, where are we from? They may not know. They will not take over that country as their own country.
Oh, well.
And by the time they read their history, there will be problem between them and the original indigenous people of that country. Go and mark my word.
All right, then. Let's take this conversation to Uganda. Barrister Edward, interestingly, the African Union is clearly stating right now that at this point, your country that is a part of this deal, and of course, Rwanda, as well as Eswatini and the likes, should be very careful and not turn the continent into a drop-off zone for arbitrary expulsion. From your position, what do you think the African Union at this point is clearly speaking to?
No, African Union, I'm happy they have waken up at this point to speak for Africa. Africa is in a dilemma of very greedy politicians who are looking on dollars, who are looking on packages from individuals. Looking at the situation in hand, I want to tell you, David, for sure, we need to look at the consequences of their actions in the future. There will be retired leaders by that time, but that will leave some of these African countries. We know we are brothers and sisters,
right,
and we move within Africa, and we know our markets. The disadvantages of whatever action, these decisions these people are making is going to affect Africa, and this will bring us so many issues. You cannot tell me that you are going to allow a prisoner who have done so many crimes and is not even an African in this case, be allowed to come and buy land in Uganda and resettle in Uganda. And you think, what kind of crimes this person did? What was the reason of this person not being accepted at his own home? So we need to be a bit careful even as we make these decisions. I've told you Uganda being example, there's what we call a collective, the shared effects on decision making. You know, African Union at this point should actually formulate formulas, decisions, decisions which are going to make African countries come, actually, when you are approving something, it must be approved in the highest level, that is in African Union, which is now going to be a parliament of its own. And such decisions should be actually tabled in African Union. But if we just leave every president to make a decision, because these things are done in bedrooms, not even in the parliament, I don't see where Ugandan parliament, where the public participated on acceptance of this kind of foreigners.
Exactly.
So Africans have been just left in such exposure for such issues. Museveni will retire tomorrow, and now he will be safe wherever he is. What about other citizens? Kagame will retire tomorrow. What about other Rwandese? So we need to be very careful. We are moving up to Nigeria. You get Ugandans in Nigeria. Right. You will not, I tell you for sure, you will get the same foreigners who will be following the same thing. They will be Nigeria, they will be where? All in Africa. And Africa will be in a continent of issues, a continent of dilemma. So I think that is not a right decision they are making at this point. And I pray African Union to actually come up with decisions which will control this.
All right, then. I'm still going to stay with you because you raised the part of Parliament, and sincerely, when questions are being asked, the question now would be, what is the role of the Parliament when the presidency, that's executive, takes such a huge decision that would affect the future of the entire country, not just now, but in the near future? What do you think the Parliament should and can do to checkmate the executive at the highest level with this kind of decision?
Unfortunately, today we are in a situation whereby our parliaments are actually in the bedroom with the executive. You get that the executive has captured most of the arms of government. So you get judiciary is captured, you get the legislation is captured. So all these bodies are no longer actually performing the duties the citizens actually have ordained to them. So in Uganda, you get that this parliament is totally captured by the executive. It is when Museveni roars and says, I want this law to be passed, it has to be passed. So some of these laws are passed at night without any participation, public participation. So I feel there is no role of a parliament at this point until Africa wakes up and says the leaders we have today are just there for their own interests. We are not being helped by them at all. Nothing in development, nothing even just in security wise. In fact, they are encouraging the security of Africa to deteriorate to that level.
Okay, I'm going to still come to you in a bit. I want to come to the studio first, and I'm going to come to you, Barrister Edward, because of the situation of Bisergi, which you're going to also chime in a few minutes from now. But Barrister Darlington, I'm coming back to you. The role of the parliament. African countries consistently vote the parliament into power. And days or months after you see this level of capture of the executive, both on the judiciary and the parliament, how can the people get this right, even from the electoral process, before getting into voting and electing these kind of parliamentarians who do not clearly checkmate the executive at the top?
You see, what happened is that Africa is practicing pseudo-democracy. We are not practicing democracy as it is spelled out, as it is the original form. We are not. What happened is that during the election proper, or before the election proper, the party in power always selects those who will go to the parliament. The man contesting the presidency will choose those who will down to his tune and appoint them into the parliament. There is nothing like election. They were appointed. That's why they cannot do anything. The people have no say. This thing starts during the election primary. They select those who will dance to their tune. The real patriotic citizens, they will not allow them to come into power. That is where the problem starts. And so when they enter into that parliament, looking at how they came in, with all the largesse they are getting and all that, of course, they have no choice than to listen to the president who appointed them. And so the rot continues.
Independent candidacy, Barrister. A lot of persons have clamored for this all across Africa. And one of the disadvantages from some quarters is the fact that independent candidacies are not practically being sponsored hard enough with their counterparts who are being sponsored by political parties. Is this a way to go if Africa should want to get it right electorally?
Even the independent candidate, they have the resources to win an election that have been monetized. If you don't have the financial muscle, you will not break in. That is the truth. So independent candidates in African election is as good as dead, because they cannot finance their own election.
All right then. Well, let's go back to Uganda, where I promised earlier that I was going to ask Barrister Edward about the situation with opposition figure Kizza Besigye and, of course, his aide, who, again, are still in trial, but, of course, they have accused the presiding judge of bias. From your position, Barrister Edward, where would these cases lead to going into the elections next year in your country?
I think this case is actually leading to crisis whereby Ugandans may require the voice of Africa. Ugandans may require the voices of the humanity in the world. Because where we are, even as we expect, we have had much participation on elections. Right. I don't think these elections is going to be elections as it is supposed to be. We are only trying to look at a situation whereby probably even elections may not be there, because already the opposition figures have been actually prevented in so many areas. They are no longer have liberty of actually convincing the electorate. So I believe this election which is coming is just for one individual. Which in democracy we call it totally, it's actually a fear of being removed from power. and using military to threaten the lives of others, intimidating the opposition, intimidating the civil society, intimidating the public itself, whom you expect to give you a vote. It is unfortunate to the government of the day. And this is a message from actually us who are actually watching the civil society, the public itself, the citizens of Uganda, that whatever the government is doing upon the life of the opposition leader, Kisa Besige, it is not actually worthy. It is not even recommendable in a democracy. So the best thing the government should actually do at the point before even the elections is to release Kisa Besige unconditionally, so that if he wants to participate in an election, be it not to tie him in prison because of any kind of fear. That is the message to the president, Yoweri Museveni.
All right, then. This is where we have to draw anchor on this conversation. But Barrister, I wanted to find out from you in just one sentence. In Kenya, there is also the part where lecturers are saying at this point they would not be forced into going back to school because there's been that strike as well, something you are very aware of even in Nigeria here. Do you think the voices of these lecturers saying they are being threatened to return back to school might just be the way to go, or would and should President of Kenya, President Ruto, should have a conversation with this lecturer in one sentence? Barrister Darlington.
Okay, me?
Yes, sir.
Look, when I heard that Museveni and Ruto have now isolated themselves from East Africa, and they are now doing economic whatever, where their tariff will be different from whatever, I knew that something is in the offing. These two leaders, they have chosen themselves, you know, to be the bad boys of East Africa. And that is why you hear some of these infamous stories from them. The lecturers should shut down. Let me see what they are going to do, whether Ruto will go and be teaching in the class. Let them shut down, just like in Nigeria. I've advised them, let them shut down.
All right, then.
Because politicians are eating all the money.
Well, then again, there is and should be a room for conversations and negotiations. Well, this is where we have to draw anchor on the analysis segment of the African News this beautiful afternoon. We've been talking with Barrister Darlington Agumo, who is Voice of the People TV's in-house political affairs analyst and, of course, a legal practitioner right here in Nigeria. Once again, thank you so very much, Barrister, for being here.
It's my pleasure.
Also joined us virtually all the way from Uganda is Barrister Edward Okwaro Matakenye. Barrister Edward is a legal practitioner in Uganda and also a human rights activist and a business associate as well. Barrister Edward, thank you so very much for being here.
Pleasure. Thank you.
All right, then the rest of the African News will continue shortly just after this quick break. Please stay.